Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a teaching with TBA Rabbinic resident Julia Knobloch.
I'm very excited because I'm going to talk about, after talking about Bialik and Amichai, I'm going to talk about my own poems. So don't judge or be judged kindly. Yes, so I had my second poetry collection published just at the beginning of this month, and it is called Book of Failed Salvation. And some of you have it. We have it. And
that is amazing. I just want to point out to those of you who are on YouTube that you didn't just see congregants pull the book up who have already bought it. That is
so amazing.
Fantastic.
So cool. Thank you so much to everyone who has already got it and showed it. And obviously, should Shabbat ever end, you can order it. There was a link provided in the newsletter where you can order it from Ben Yehuda Press in New Jersey. So I want to, just talk briefly about the book, and I thought I might introduce it using the four levels of interpretation that we know: Pardes, Pshat, Drash, Remez, and Sod. The Pshat of the book is pretty obviously the story of an unrequited love, or as the blurb says, one of the blurbs says, that I chronicle a relationship that spanned continents before coming to an end. So, and there's a lot of stuff in there. That's the Pshat of the book. The drash is what you are going to all make out of it, of course, for yourselves. One drash that I want to offer is, well, first the title. That's a drash on my own, from my own perspective. And you can also, maybe if you read it, you can find out why that might be. And I actually, just before this call, I thought I might want to say something more, since this is December 25th today. And several people have pointed out that the title sounds very Christian because of the word salvation in it. And obviously, because it's, in the English-speaking context that we are in, salvation is often linked with Jesus and with Christianity. And I did choose that title deliberately, and also this is again up to everyone else's brush why I might have done that. But when, if not today, I want to say a few more words about that. In our American, or at least CE time of Jews, we might feel a bit awkward because this word is so connected with Jesus and with salvation and everything that it connotes. At the same time, though, it is obviously a word that stems in the Hebrew is Yud Shin Ayin. And that is a firm element in our liturgy. And Yeshua is salvation, redemption, deliverance, depending on whatever translator and from whatever perspective they come to it, is often used interchangeably. Sometimes not. Sometimes there will only be redemption or deliverance and not salvation. But often it is just going through the Lev Shalem. Sometimes it says when the root of Yud Shin Ayin is used, sometimes it is redemption, sometimes it's deliverance, sometimes it's salvation. So I just wanted to sort of frame it with that. It is not supposed to be a Christian book. It is quite deliberately put into the Jewish context, and which brings me to the third level, the Remez part that I was hoping to blur sometimes the boundaries between love between human beings and the longing for divine love. And one friend and poet said that sometimes it is not clear, quoting him, paraphrasing him, whether I'm longing for the embrace of a lover or God. And I was very, very happy when I read that, because this is what I was going for. And partly just because I'm very interested in it, and also because a lot of the poems derive or are inspired by lines and images and concepts that we have in our liturgy and in prayer. So I have been playing with that, and to hear that someone picked up on that, and that was very gratifying. And I hope those of you who read it might find that as well, or maybe other aspects of that. And then there's also a sword, of course. The sword is the truth of the you addressed in those poems. This book is my perspective, and it is written from my perspective. And while there is a you that has a living representative walking this earth, it is more than a story about that. It is really sort of like more the vessel of trying to express certain truth and longings and feelings that we have. So with that, yes, I'm actually working on a devar for Parashat Bo, which will be in our temple synagogue's newsletter, and I will talk more about the redemption, deliverance, salvation. But I thought it was a good thing to sort of expand on this day where Yuchin A. Deverate is allegedly born. So with that, if you would like to share the screen, and I can read. So on the sheet that I had sent out, that you can all probably have all either printed out or are looking at, or can look at when we share the screen. I'm going to read those 3 poems, and I added, and that's basically for your sort of background, or if you want to comment on that, some poems or prayers that inspired these three poems. And I can share, Hector can share, if we need to share. I can also just read Rabbi Schatz.
Yeah, why don't you, if you can share it, why don't you do it, because I don't...
Yes, I'm here, but I think it would be better for you to share it.
Oh, okay, that is not the one that I wanted to share. I had it prepared.
Is it just the Google Doc?
Yeah, it's the Google Doc, but I don't know why I don't know it. I'm sorry,
I have it up, so it's
Also, we might have a little bit more time, maybe with the shorter services. So we can maybe read one or two of the other the poems that inspired. But okay, so this first poem is inspired by many things, but namely by 2 of these short poems that are on the second page, that you can look at your leisure. One is the famous short poem by Yehuda Halevi, about him being in the West and his heart being in the East. And there is also a traditional song that's in Ladino and that's also been sung in Hebrew by many, many artists. And it's either Morenica in the Ladino version or Shefa Chored. The lines, there's a lot of images of the young woman standing at the quay and seeing ships sail away and expressing a certain longing. And these 2 things, Yehuda Halevi also being from Spain, sort of inspired this following poem, which is the first poem in the collection, actually. It's called Port of Salt in the West, for Yehuda Halevi. This port was founded when the temple stood in the east across the sea. Phoenicians salted fish, Romans traded pottery, when the temple fell in the east across the sea. From this port of salt you embarked, driven by your longing for the dawn. Fallen kingdoms behind you, waiting for you in the east across the sea. Far is the green river from this port of salt. Your daughter and her son stood on the quay. They promised to tend your empty gardens. You fell into the dust at the gates of your desire. Please call me Morenica one more time. The sun has turned my pale skin dark. Your ship sails to the east across the sea, and all my longing goes with you, Yehuda. And on the next page of this sheet, there are these two poems that you can look at later. I don't want to take up too much time. I do want to say another thing that I'm playing with in the book is a lot the distinction and opposite and ultimately falling together of directions. I play a lot in general in my poems with space and time, which is also very Jewish, or we find a lot in Jewish texts and thinking and our theology in general, right? But also there's a lot of West and East in this whole collection, partly because it also spans like my own journey from the East Coast to the West Coast that is in there, or from even further Israel to Los Angeles, and because it plays with because this Yehuda Halevi quote is in there. So that is also why this poem it's one of the reasons why I chose this poem to open the collection. First of all, to broaden it up and to widen it up, and because it's in the West, and it's a spoiler alert, but the collection also ends in the West. And so it's a circle. The next one is Yedid Nefesh, which we are all familiar with. And I'm going to read the next. Yedid Nefesh. Light washes over kitchen tiles like water, wavering with the rhythm of the trees. Sometimes I don't remember if your eyes are green or amber, eyes of a deer. Where we are from, deer are symbols of male splendor, swift and strong. Far from the land, they hide in birch forests behind dark pines. Come quick. I want to feel your heartbeat. Return to our embrace. Dew was in your hair when I left. The tiles in your apartment cool under my feet. Tea glasses and date syrup on the kitchen table. Quiet olive trees out. I am up early again this morning. The water called me to the beach, where you are now. So there's a lot of Yedid Nefesh inspiration in that, and also from Erev Shel Shoshanim, which takes a lot from Yedid Nefesh and Shir HaShirim, so it's all one. I don't know. There's one more poem to which I will probably read actually the inspirational poem, because it ends with the word Shem, or name, which is so fitting for our parsha, and I'm always trying to get a bridge to our parsha into my teaching on these Saturday afternoons. But if you're welcome to make comments or ask questions after I read the last poem. So I don't want to just like rush through it, but I also want to be concise in with our time. So the last one is inspired by a poem by Yehuda Amichai, because it can't be Julia talking about poetry without making a reference to Amichai. So this one is called What Was I Even Thinking? And it is inspired after In the Middle of the Century by Yehuda Amichai. August is a slowly aging woman, like Av, a two-faced month, leading the way to fall and renewal. To the end of the summer, I thought this one could be. Then again, what kind of summer did I even think this one would be? A summer that would last all but 3 weeks, the last before the long goodbye to my tanned flesh and mortal hips, to songs we might have sung, to a white moon in the Levant. Wild geese are flying, and the cicada in the tree outside my window sings louder, early. I hear of comfort happening. The prophets saw the Shatnitzav mingling, lost in translation and desire. Too many years between. Your journey to another land. You want to leave in peace. I want to write your name with love. I want to speak in praise of your transient face that I touched when you were near with full eyes. Yes, that was the last of the 3 poems from the book that I wanted to share. And if anybody wants to ask something or comment on something, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. I think Sweet wants to say something.
I remembered to unmute even before Zoom told me to. In your earlier work and in this new one, I find that, to me at least, there's an interesting sense of place in many of your poems and locations. And what I found interesting, at least for myself, is that I would read something like Mountain Time in the new work, and having lived in Colorado for many years, my mind immediately goes to Colorado. And your opening line refers to a bridge over a deep gorge. And there is such a place in Colorado near Canyon City. It's a tourist attraction and literally a bridge to nowhere. And then a few lines later, I see reference to an ibex, and we didn't have those in Colorado, so I knew I was reading about someplace else, I think. And,
wow. First of all, thank you for quoting from a poem from my first collection.
I have two. I like to tell people I now have 2 first editions of a poem.
Yes.
Work, so.
Yes, you still need them signed. I am hosting a book release that I'm happy to share with everyone if everyone wants to come still, because it's supposed to be in person outdoors on January 9th. So you can acquire copies there and also get the book signed. Currently it is still on in person outdoors. I hope this can be also the case. Yes, actually, the poem was inspired by New Mexico. I have been in New Mexico several times, and I really love it there. And it's certainly a Southwest-inspired poem. And the ibex comes partly from the Alps, partly also from New Mexico. So it's a mix of things. But yes, I'm really a person who's very much in touch with the physical place that I'm in, and I'm happy that you pointed that out because it's very important. All right. I guess, what should we do?
We definitely have time. So if you want to share something else, Mari is probably going to take 15 minutes max.
Yeah, right,
you have
right.
time. Tybal has something that she'll say.
Okay.
It's a different kind of thing because I'm often I like when people are connected. I was looking up your work when I first heard you teach poetry, and I realized that someone I know through Association for Jewish Libraries had spoken with you, which is Erica Dreyfus, and she sends regards and good wishes and all those things.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I had email with Erica because I was very excited that I knew both of these people who had been speaking when I found it online.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, and thanks. Please give my regards to Erica. I'll be in touch with her too, of course. Yes, Erica Dreyfus is amazing poet. I know her from New York. She and I are in a group who are called Achayot Writers. We've been women Jewish writers. And she has an amazing collection out that is called Birthright, I think. Yes, Birthright, by Erica Dreyfus. I think it was published late 2019. It is a great book, and she's a very prolific and amazing writer. So definitely.
Funny, she says the same things about you.
Oh. Good. Thank you. Thanks again. I see Barry and Kathy have their hand up.
I picked up on some imagery in this last poem, I guess it was. Used the word shotness of the relationship of lovers from different perspectives, different realities, different worlds. Almost thinking the Romeo and Juliet model, how the strength of love reaching across a chasm of difference. Mm-hmm. And you had the word shotness in there, and that really struck me. It's a beautiful imagery that you created there.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. It is not my original, which is now the time to make me read the poem. The original poem by Yehuda Amichai, because it is the thing is that in the English translation, he in his Hebrew original of the poem that inspired this poem, he uses shatnez. I'm not prepared to share the Hebrew here because I don't have it available right now. But I do have the English version, which again doesn't use the shatnez, probably because Asya Gutman is an amazing translator. Maybe she chose to not use it because it's going to be in English. And but yes, I wish I could take credit for the beautiful image, but it's Yehuda Amichai. I just used it because I saw it in the Hebrew original.
But you used it. You picked up on it.
I picked up on it.
So the imagery comes back to you.
I can take credit for that, but the idea is Amichai's. And I'm just going to read the English version of this poem, which is called in English, In the Middle of the Century. In the middle of the century, we turned to each other with half faces and full eyes, like an ancient Egyptian picture, and for a short while. I stroked your hair in the opposite direction to your journey. We called to each other, like calling out the names of towns where nobody stops along the route. Lovely is the world rising early to evil. Lovely is the world falling asleep to sin and pity. In the mingling of ourselves, you and I. Lovely is the earth drinks men and their loves like wine. To forget, it can't. And like the contours of the Judean hills, we shall never find peace. In the middle of the century, we turned to each other. I saw your body, throwing shade, waiting for me. The leather straps for a long journey, already tightening across my chest. I spoke in praise of your mortal hips. You spoke in praise of my passing face. I stroked your hair in the direction of your journey. I touched your flesh, prophet of you. I touched your hand, which has never slept. I touched your mouth, which may yet sing. Dust from the desert covered the table at which we did not eat. But with my finger, I wrote on it the letters of your name. That's the original. It was one of the first poems that I read from Yehuda Amichai. And then it came back to me in one way, and then later it inspired that.
I just wanted to say how I think I said this the first time you taught on poetry. I am not a poet, but I am extremely impressed at how you can write in such a way that is clearly intimate and vulnerable to your life, and there's clearly story behind what you're writing. And yet, I'm sure I speak for all of us that we can hear your words of your story and think of our own. And that to me is just great writing, that it's not just us hearing your story, which is compelling in its own right. But the fact that you're writing in such a way that it's both specific and also general enough for us to be able to make our own connections, whether about our own experiences or just our ability to visualize and experience really that which you want us to experience by reading the poetry. So I'm just very impressed by that as someone who doesn't write in that kind of way. I'm very impressed by that kind of expression that you share.
Thank you. That is like a huge compliment, and it's what one wants, you know, like while of course there's an urge in a way also to sort of process certain events, but also to communicate feelings and images and just, you know, emotions that one or I have had. It's not a memoir. Poetry, like for me, writing, people often, and this book more than maybe more than my previous collection, or maybe more than even some other poems that I've written, is very ultimately very truth to it. It's very rooted and grounded in like real life. And at the same time, what I've tried to do is to also like free it from that, because the intention was not to, I'm going to tell this and this happened. That's not the main motivation for writing poetry for me in general. It's not, that's why I don't write memoir. I mean, nothing against memoir, but I do want to share, and I do want to process and communicate my impressions, but I want to do it in a way that creates something beyond that specific event. And then if it brings up stories in their own rights for everyone, for people who read it, that's obviously amazing, because it's what I want that happens. You know, I want to stimulate and inspire, like that people get their own memories and stories. And I'm glad that you told me that, because it's great.
Tybal, why don't you share, and then we'll go to Mariv, and then I think Julia has one more poem that she's going to share before Havdalah. So I think that timing will work out.
Okay, great.
what you said, Rabbi Schatz, made me think about part of what I find so interesting, which is for years having been interested in language processing, and specifically one very specific thing, how people who are polyglots, when they dream and what language they dream in based on what they've been using. And looking at your bio, or just a short bio, and listening to your speech, I'm assuming that you are a polyglot, and poetry is much closer to dream and subconscious than prose. So I just find it so interesting to look at the words you choose and what it evokes, given what I assume I know about you, that in fact you are a polyglot.
Yes. If polyglot means several languages, then yes. Obviously German, English, Spanish. Those are the 3 languages I feel I can have conversations about basically everything.
Hebrew too.
Well, it's growing, my conversation skills in Hebrew are still very limited. I read better. I understand more than I can speak, but I cannot have a conversation about poetry in Hebrew, much as I aspire to that. And I hope one day it'll actually, happen. But yeah. And then there's French and Portuguese, but it's gotten very rusty because I haven't spoken it, but, yeah.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.